Hello, good morning. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of things. One, how much prep is enough prep, right? Because I think one of the questions recently in our dialogues and in our shared sessions with colleagues is I think there is kind of this misunderstanding that we are prepless, or that I am prepless, or that I'm trying desperately to go with no prep at all, and that's a myth, and it's just not true. Dark Age of Man in and of itself is all prep. The book defines the city, it defines the buildings, it defines who owns those businesses, it defines the Baron, his family, his religious philosophies. We define every kingdom, who the king is, the population. We actually provide in Dark Age of Man prep, right? That gives us the grounding of the world. We don't define we don't define every little detail, but we define so much that there's prep just in and of the rule book, right? Okay, to the point that we actually name the owner of the Black Leaf Inn and the Gold Leaf Inn, and we name the blacksmith for the Baron. We name, right? Okay. So we actually create with Dark Age of Man the existence of a world in which your prep is mostly done for you. Now you are required by the rules to make a random seed generator that is weighted in difficulty of danger, that is meant to be vague, so it keeps the GM naive enough that they have to think on the fly, they have to be flexible to fit it into the program, fit it into what's happening live, and to not know. Why not know? Because if we know the details, we have the answers, they're going to be railroaded to that one conclusion. So this also brings me around to the idea of player agency, and we're talking about that recently. When I speak about player agency, I don't mean your total freedom to just dick around in a session. I mean your freedom to decide how you and your group, your friends, your party want to resolve issues, right? And first of all, I want them free to decide which issues they want to prioritize. Do we deal with the plague today, or do we deal with the bandits that are robbing all the people trying to come into the city? If we do, how do we want to deal with those bandits? Do we want to kill them? Do we want to barter with them? Do we want to hire mercenaries to take care of them? Do we want to tell the sheriff and deputize and get more people to hunt down these bandits? I want infinite ways for players to resolve any issue. So I will be clear here. When I say player agency, I'm talking about their ability to resolve any dilemma or issue based on the rules and their character, right? If they want to pick a lock and they don't have the ability to pick a lock, you're going to have to come up, that's not railroading. Within the rules, you better find another way to get in this door, right? Okay. So I want to make that clear. When I say player agency, I don't mean just freedom to fuck up a session. I don't mean just freedom to go right and left. I mean the players actually can decide, prioritize, and decide how they want to try to deal with the king. They don't have to always kill the king. They don't have to always bow to the king. They can figure out all kinds of very cool and clever ways to resolve the issue with the king. Dark Age of Man makes that very easy with low mechanical footprint. Games like Peace have higher mechanical footprint. Games like D&D 5th Edition have a higher mechanical footprint. There are games that have mechanics that you must navigate, and that's nothing. Again, that's perfect. Those are rules, and we want to play by those rules because there's a satisfaction to saying, wow, not only did I resolve this in a clever way, but the mechanics supported my use of it, and look where we get, right? Okay. So by the way, don't confuse heavy mechanics and light mechanics with not valid play. One is different than the other, right? Okay, so when I say prepless, we're not prepless. 2061, I prepped 2061 post-apocalyptic Denver. I gave Dell a job. I told him where he lived. I told him his neighborhood, his district. I told him who he knew. He knew the NPCs. He knew his partner. He knew the evil bad guy that was immediately the problem. He knew the Heater gang that was immediately a problem. He knew the Dusters, which were homeless, non-organized bandits. He had a bestiary I gave him to understand the rules, right? It was 2061 was not just made up shit. It was prepped. Dell was session zeroed. Dell got all the pertinent information for his character to exist in a world of literal issues, right? So be aware that I'm not saying prepless, and our random seed generator does not remove your your obligation to understand Dredgewater as a player and understand Dredgewater as a GM, right? When the player says, I'm going to the Gold Leaf Inn, you as a GM better not go Gold Leaf Inn. What are you talking about? Dude, it's in the book, prep. No Gold Leaf Inn if you're going to GM our game, right? Okay, so this is about player responsibility, GM responsibility, but there's no such thing as prepless for me, right? And I'm sorry if people out there think that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry if people out there think that's what we're trying to design with our game. That's not true. Our book itself is your base ground prep, right? You can actually use the book as your initial session prep, right? Here it is. They're in Dredgewater. They need to make a character. Here's the people they know. Here's the places they know. Now make a random seed generator. We're asking you as a rule, as a GM, you're required to do this. It's part of the rules. Take it or leave it. If you don't want to do that, don't play Dark Age of Man, right? Okay. And by the way, that's a mechanic. It's a device. It's a table. It's a chart. It requires 3 dice. You roll the dice. You're required to populate it as a GM with information, hopefully naive. You're required then to roll it in session multiple times, and you're required to somehow get it in front of the players. I mean, these are rules, right? Okay. So again, I may make videos where I talk about preferences, so I think sometimes I blur the line between kind of what I like and what I'm doing. I think I very often probably am a little fuzzy in my communication, and I want to make clear that some of that is just I'm referring to a particular thing, and I may not use the exact right vocabulary, therefore it can be a little confusing. So what I'm saying is we prep, we are prepped. We are not prep-less. We are prep-light, if anything, right? The book itself provides a basis for prep for everybody, right? Players and GM, right? So the game itself is not prepless. Okay, you're required to make random seed charts. You can make 8, you can make 1. Doesn't make any difference. And you are required, and I define this in the rules, to have a setup. You have to have a goal, right? So I define this in the rules when I say have the players, something the players are supposed to be kind of doing or involved in. So we are not prepless, okay? Peace was not prepless. I prepped very hard for peace, but I prepped the rules more than I prepped details, okay? So I needed to know those rules. I wanted to know those rules, and I still failed at times to recall the rules. So, that's because I just don't have enough experience with it yet, right? And when I talk about player agency, I'm just talking about don't decide they must kill the dragon to win, right? That's what I mean. They can negotiate with the dragon. They can kill the dragon. They can get an army to take on the dragon. They can move the entire village out away from the dragon. There's so many ways they can deal with the dragon. But don't decide that they must kill the dragon to win, to succeed. They didn't have to close my portal to move on. They could close the portal. I gave them a resource knowing they were level 1 characters. They could not dispel magic, so Mela had to give them a tool to dispel the portal because they aren't capable of dispelling. But I also gave the portal hit points, so they could literally destroy it with their axes and their hammers and their physical violence. They could shut the portal by just destroying the stone, right? So I gave them multiple ways they could handle the portal. That's player agency. How they choose to go about it is entirely up to them. Okay. So these are the 2 things that I think we're all in agreement on. I mean, Robert and I are in total agreement. Dell and I are in total agreement. I think almost all of my peers and I are in total agreement. We all share this game. We all have played together. So I think, but I just need to clarify that Dark Age of Man is not prepless. Dark Age of Man is not make shit up. Dark Age of Man is a simple mechanism that controls the GM's rulings. And I want to talk about this. What do you really need to know about Dark Age of Man? What is different about Dark Age of Man? In Dark Age of Man, the rules do not govern the players. The rules, the mechanic of our single dice roll is not designed to govern the players. It's designed to govern the GM's rulings. Okay, so let me say that one more time. The rules do not govern the players. The dice mechanic does not govern the players. Dell says, I'm going to kick the door in. He invents the mechanic. I say this is hard. And I have to choose a difficulty on a chart, right? And he knows what hard means. He knows what he has to roll. He rolls, he applies body to it, and any gear like an axe, he has an axe or a hammer. And he's going to hammer the door. That's +1. He has a body of 3. That's +4. And he rolls that and he gets his number. And I'd say, boom, door's bass open. He can choose what he wants to do, not governed by the rules, right? I am governed by my ruling. I can only give him so many choices. I can't say roll a d6. I can't say roll a d12. I can't say, here's what you got to do. You're going to have to pat yourself on the head, rub your belly, and count backwards from Z to A in 30 seconds. And if you get anything wrong, I can't invent a rule. He knows I'm limited. Our mechanic limits the GM to this ruling, right? So we have to make a ruling: roll, don't roll, roll hard, roll easy, whatever. But the mechanic is really there to govern my need to make a ruling. And they all know that my rulings have to be universal and they have to fit in this structure. Then the players, post-roll, get to describe, or I get to describe as GM, or the players get to narrate or describe the result. That's what our mechanic does. Our mechanic governs the GM. It does not govern the players. So what makes our game system? So when somebody says, dude, I've played one-roll systems before. Dude, I've played simple game systems before. What are you doing differently? No. But have the games you played, are the rules there to govern the player, or are the rules there to govern the GM? Our game is saying the rules are designed to govern the range in which I can make rulings, and the players understand that. The players aren't governed by the rules. Okay? So I think I've clarified that. But I want to say we're not prepless. Our book defines everything you need to launch, right? Our game system really defines, it gives us a structure for the GMs and the amount of rulings and how they can make rulings. The players aren't limited by those mechanics. And for those of you who maybe didn't understand that, or for those of you who want to then, again, use keywords to diminish what we're doing, you want to use keywords to diminish how we do something, because those keywords culturally reflect something upon what we're trying to do without reading our rules or without trying our rules. That's a sad thing, right? We live in a culture where many cultures use keywords as shortcuts to discriminate or to paint a particular picture. We don't make shit up. We don't just willy-nilly play cops and robbers, right? There is a prep, right? Ivan played in a game the other night. I had that prep. I knew the Baron. I knew what had happened in the session before. I also knew Dredgewater. We also knew the certain situations. We also had a random C chart. It was not utterly just made up, right? Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. But awesome stuff. I love what we're doing with Peace, having a great time running it and playing in it. Our groups are fantastic. I'm also lucky enough to have a chance to play Cyberpunk for the first time in my career. Justin Green is going to run us a Sunday in the new Cyberpunk Red. I cannot wait. I have always wanted to try Shadowrun and Cyberpunk. I've been less inclined to try the older versions because they sounded way too crunchy, maybe way too much dice rolling as far as pools. So I've been very, very, very very careful about trying it, right? And of course, 5 years ago, I would have said, there ain't no way I'm playing Shadowrun, right? I've played more games since. I've learned more since. I'm more well-rounded. I'm more well-read. I'm more experienced, so that I'm not so intimidated by a game like Shadowrun. So, but I'm definitely pumped to play Cyberpunk. Justin's fantastic GM. We haven't had a bad time. Our Sunday group has, we have nothing but good games, good sessions, good fun. And I cannot wait, because this kind of futuristic setting is something I don't get to enjoy much. And so I think Cyberpunk defines it. This kind of setting is defined by the Cyberpunk, or it's defined by the rules. It's defined by the gentleman who wrote it. Kind of like Peace. Peace is defined by this high fantasy world that's written by one guy, and it defines it. Peace's mechanics define it, but without the world and the setting and the high fantasy, it's just new rules and mechanics. So it's defined. These things are defined, and if you want to experience Peace, you got to play Peace. So if you want to experience that rule. So I think this is going to be great fun. But anyway, thank you for listening, and again, more coming from us, hopefully with some Dark Age of Man actual play sessions in the future. And I thought, it dawned on me, I should probably make a video defining our rules don't govern the players. Our simple mechanic governs the referee. It governs my ability to make a ruling. The ruling is simple: roll, don't roll. And how hard is it? That's it. I'm not allowed to go outside of that, right? I get to set a difficulty. I get to demand when they make a check. But aside from that, that's it, right? And they aren't limited by, can I hunt? Do I have the skill for hunting? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I say this? Can I say that? Right? There's no rule governing them outside of their attributes. And obviously, if they don't have prestige, there's a rule of class structures in feudalism that governs whether they're peasants or not. So if you don't want to be a peasant, don't pick 0, right? And we make this all clear in our book, right? So thank you. Bye. Oh, fumble.